She was 7 months pregnant when she found the wedding invitation. Not her wedding, his wedding, to someone else. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what he told everyone about her. That she lost the baby, that she went crazy, that she had to be sent away for her own good. None of it was true. Margot Sinclair was very much pregnant, very much sane, and very much done being erased. So she did something no one expected. She walked into that wedding, 400 guests, the social elite of Virginia, his new bride in white silk and diamonds, and she brought a folder. What she read from that folder made his mother scream for security, made his brother go pale, made his new bride run down the aisle in her wedding dress. But the real shock, the documents were not about the pregnancy. They were about something far worse. This is the story of how one woman refused to disappear and how one folder burned an empire to the ground. The wedding invitation was ivory linen, expensive, embossed with gold lettering. Her name was not on it. Margot Sinclair stood in the doorway of her small Virginia apartment, 7 months pregnant, holding the envelope that had fallen out of a bundle of forwarded mail. The return address was stamped in elegant script, the Ashford Estate. She knew that address. She had dreamed of living there once. She had imagined raising children there. She had believed with every fiber of her being that it would be her home. The afternoon sun slanted through the dusty blinds. The air conditioner hummed its tired rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Margot's fingers trembled as she pulled out the card inside. The paper was thick, creamy, the kind that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Together with their families, Colton James Ashford and Tessa Marie Monroe request the honor of your presence at their wedding. The date was 3 weeks away. Saturday, 4 in the afternoon. Reception to follow. Margot read the words again. Then again? Then one more time, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. As if this might be a different Colton Ashford. A coincidence. A cosmic joke. A terrible, terrible mistake. But the address was the Ashford Estate. The family crest was embossed in the corner. And the handwriting on the envelope, the forwarding label from her old apartment, was definitely real. This was not a mistake. The baby kicked, hard, right against her ribs, like a warning, or maybe a wake-up call, or maybe just the reflexive movement of a child who sensed her mother's world was collapsing. Margot lowered herself onto the couch. The springs creaked beneath her weight. She had gained 42 pounds since Colton convinced her to leave the city, since he had sent her away to heal, since he had promised, with tears in his eyes and his hand on her belly, that he would join her soon. That was 5 months ago. 5 months of weekly phone calls that became bi-weekly, then monthly, then nothing at all. 5 months of text messages that went from paragraphs to sentences to single words to silence. 5 months of telling herself he was busy, the merger at work, the family obligations, the stress of planning for a baby. She had made excuses for him. She had defended him to her mother, who never liked him. She had believed, because she needed to believe, that love was enough. She stared at the invitation. The calligraphy was beautiful, flowing, elegant. Someone had spent hours on these letters. Someone had chosen the paper, the font, the gold embossing. Someone had planned every detail of this wedding, and that someone was marrying Colton Ashford, the father of her child, the man who had sworn he loved her, Tessa Marie Monroe. Margot had never heard that name before, but apparently Tessa had been hearing about Margot, the crazy ex-girlfriend, the one who could not let go, the one who invented a pregnancy to trap a good man. Margot's phone buzzed on the coffee table. Emmy's name flashed on the screen. Emmeline Cross, her best friend since college, the one person who had never doubted her. She answered without greeting. The words would not come. Her throat was tight. Her chest was hollow. She felt like she was falling, even though she was sitting still. Margot, you there? I've been trying to reach you all day. Emmy's voice was tight, urgent. Something was wrong, something beyond the invitation. Please tell me you're sitting down. I'm sitting, Margot managed. Have you seen the news? Have you been online at all today? Margot looked at the invitation in her hand, the gold letters gleaming in the afternoon light. I got something in the mail. Oh God. Emmy exhaled sharply. The sound was almost a sob. So you know about the wedding. I'm holding the invitation. It was forwarded from the old apartment. The invitation? How did you get an invitation? That doesn't make any sense. Why would they send you an invitation? Margot turned the envelope over. The forwarding label was from her old address, the one she had shared with Colton in the city, the brownstone with the bay windows and the garden in the back. Someone must have grabbed her mail and sent it along without checking what was inside. A neighbor, maybe, or the new tenants. An innocent mistake that had delivered a devastating blow. It was forwarded, she said. Someone must have collected my mail without looking at it. Jesus, of all the ways to find out. Emmy paused. Her breathing was heavy, controlled. Margot, listen to me. There's something you need to know. Something worse than the wedding. What could be worse? He told everyone you lost the baby. The room tilted. The walls leaned inward. The ceiling pressed down. Margot gripped the arm of the couch with her free hand. Her knuckles went white. What? Colton, he's been telling everyone for months. He said you had a miscarriage at 4 months. He said the grief was too much for you. He said you had a complete mental breakdown afterward. He said you became obsessed with the pregnancy even though it was over. He said you couldn't accept that the baby was gone. Margot's hand moved to her belly. The baby kicked again, rolling, stretching, very much alive, very much real. 7 months of growth, 7 months of doctors' appointments and ultrasounds and vitamins and hope. That's not true, she said. None of that is true. I'm 7 months pregnant. The baby is fine, and I just had a checkup last week. I know it's not true, but Margot, everyone believes him. He's been so convincing. He cried at dinner parties. He talked about grief counseling. He said the loss destroyed you both. He said you refused to accept reality, and he had to get a restraining order for both your sakes. A restraining order against me? He never actually filed one. I checked the court records. There's nothing. But he tells people he did. He tells people you showed up at his office, that you sent threatening letters, that you called his family and said terrible things. I haven't spoken to anyone in his family for 5 months. I haven't been to his office since I left the city. Emmy, I've been here, in this apartment, alone growing his child. I know. I believe you. I've always believed you. Emmy's voice cracked. I should have called sooner. I should have told you what he was saying. But I only found out 2 days ago. I ran into his brother at a charity event. Bradley was surprised I was even asking about you. He said everyone knew you were gone. Gone. That was the word he used. Gone. Like you were dead. Like you had ceased to exist. Margot stood up. Her legs felt unsteady. The baby shifted, pressing against her bladder. She walked to the window and looked out at the quiet Virginia street. The trees were green. The sidewalks were empty. A cardinal sat on the fence, watching nothing. She had come here because Colton said the city stress was bad for the pregnancy. He had found her this apartment. He had paid the first 3 months of rent. He had promised to visit every weekend. He had said it was temporary, just until she felt better, just until the baby was stronger, just until the merger was complete. He had visited twice. Then the calls became shorter. Then they stopped altogether. She had told herself he was busy. She had told herself the distance was hard for him too. She had told herself a lot of things. Now she understood. She had not disappeared. She had been erased. I have to go, Margot said. Don't do anything crazy, please. Just wait until I get there. I'm driving up tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. I'm not going to do anything crazy. Margot, I'm just going to think. I need time to process this. I need to understand what's happening. Promise me you won't do anything until I get there. I promise, she ended the call. The invitation sat on the couch where she had dropped it. Ivory linen, gold letters, a fairy tale for someone else. Margot walked to the bathroom. She stood in front of the mirror. Her face was rounder than it used to be. Her hair was longer. Her eyes looked tired, older, like she had aged 5 years and 5 months. Her belly was enormous, undeniable, real. I'm not crazy, she said to her reflection. The words echoed in the small bathroom, bounced off the tiles, came back to her like a promise. I was never crazy. He just needed everyone to think I was. The baby kicked again, 3 times in quick succession, as if agreeing, as if saying, yes, we're real. We exist. He can't erase us. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky turned orange and pink, beautiful and different. The world kept spinning whether your heart was breaking or not. Margot's mother called it 7. Ruth Sinclair had a sixth sense for trouble. She had developed it during 30 years of marriage to a man who kept secrets. She had refined it raising a daughter who tried too hard to see the best in people. Something's wrong, Ruth said without preamble. I can feel it. Mom. Don't mom me. I've been feeling uneasy all day. Couldn't concentrate. Kept checking my phone, then Emmy called me an hour ago, told me what happened, told me what that man has been saying. Margot sighed. She wasn't supposed to call you. I wanted to tell you myself. Well, she did call, and now I'm coming over. I'm already in the car. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Mom, it's a 2-hour drive from Richmond. I left an hour and 40 minutes ago. I told you I felt something was wrong. Ruth arrived in exactly 20 minutes. She walked through the door without knocking. She took one look at Margot and pulled her into a hug that lasted a full minute. The kind of hug that says, I've got you. The kind of hug only a mother can give. That man, Ruth said into Margot's hair, that absolute waste of oxygen. I don't understand how this happened, how he could say those things, how people could believe him. Ruth released her and walked to the kitchen. She filled the kettle and set it on the stove. She had always believed tea could solve anything, or at least make it bearable. I understand exactly how it happened, she said. He's a liar. He's always been a liar. I told you that 2 years ago when you first brought him home. You said you had concerns. You said he seemed too polished. I had more than concerns. I had instincts. A mother knows. And I knew there was something wrong with that man. Something hollow behind those pretty eyes. The kettle began to warm. Ruth turned to face her daughter. Her expression was strange, complicated, almost guilty. There's something I need to tell you, she said. Something I should have told you months ago. What? Ruth opened her purse. She pulled out a folder. It was thick, worn at the edges, like it had been handled many times, like someone had added to it over months, maybe years. I kept everything, she said. Every text message he sent you that you forwarded to me. Every email you shared. Every screenshot you took and forgot about. Every receipt from the account you shared. Every photo with a timestamp. I printed it all. I dated it all. I organized it all. Margot stared at the folder. Why? When did you start doing this? 2 years ago, right after you moved in with him. I didn't trust him. I couldn't explain why, but I wanted to be ready if this day ever came. Ruth set the folder on the kitchen table. It landed with a thump that seemed to echo in the small room. Everything in here proves that he knew about the pregnancy, that he supported it, that he was involved every step of the way. If he's telling people you imagined it, this folder says otherwise. Margot opened it with trembling hands. The first page was a screenshot of a text message from Colton, dated 5 months ago, the day before he sent her to Virginia. Our baby is going to be perfect. I can't wait to meet her. I've already picked out names, Margaret after your grandmother, or maybe something more modern. What do you think? The next page was a bank statement, a transfer of $8,000 from their joint account to her personal account. The memo line read, baby expenses, month 1. He knew, Margot whispered. The words felt strange in her mouth, like a revelation that was also obvious. He knew about the baby, he supported the pregnancy, he sent money. He did more than that. Ruth pointed to a section near the back of the folder. Look at the emails, the ones from 3 months ago. Margot flipped through the pages. Her hands were shaking now. The papers rustled like leaves in a storm. The emails were between Colton and someone named Richard Vance, Esquire, attorney at law. They discussed managing the situation. They used phrases like clean break and narrative control and plausible deniability. They talked about establishing groundwork and protecting assets and ensuring compliance. One email stood out, dated 4 months ago, highlighted in yellow by Ruth's careful hand. If she doesn't cooperate, we can proceed with the incompetency angle. A few well-placed conversations should establish the groundwork. By the time she realizes what's happening, the narrative will be set. Her own confusion will work in our favor. He planned this, Margot said. Her voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. He planned to erase me from the beginning, before he even sent me away. He planned to erase both of you. Ruth touched Margot's belly gently. Her hand was warm, steady. But he made a mistake. He didn't know I was watching. He didn't know I was keeping records. The kettle whistled. Ruth poured 2 cups of chamomile tea. She brought them to the table and sat down across from her daughter. The folder sat between them like a weapon, like a shield, like proof that the truth still existed somewhere. So, Ruth said, what do you want to do? Margot looked at the folder, at the evidence of betrayal stacked neatly between manila covers, at the truth that contradicted every lie Colton had told, at the ammunition her mother had been gathering for 2 years. I don't know yet, she said honestly, but I'm not going to disappear, and I'm not going to let him win. Ruth smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a mother who had been waiting a long time to fight, the smile of a woman who had raised her daughter to be strong and was finally going to watch her prove it. Good, she said. Neither am I. 6 months earlier. The memory surfaced like a drowned thing rising to the top of dark water. Colton's hand on her face. Gentle. Concerned. His thumb tracing circles on her cheek. His voice soft with worry. His eyes so full of love that she never thought to question it. The stress isn't good for the baby, sweetheart. The city is too much. The noise, the pollution, the pressure from your job. I can see it wearing you down. They were standing in their apartment, the brownstone with the bay windows, the one where they had talked about putting a nursery in the spare bedroom, the one where she had imagined their daughter taking her first steps. I could take some time off work, Margot had suggested. Work from home, reduce my hours. We could make it work here. That's not enough. You need to really rest, really disconnect. My aunt has a place in Virginia. Quiet, beautiful. There's a garden, clean air. You could stay there until you feel stronger. But what about you? What about us? He had pulled her close, wrapped his arms around her. Let her feel the warmth of his body, the steadiness of his heartbeat. I'll visit every weekend, I promise. And I'll join you permanently once the merger is done. 2 months, 3 at most. It will fly by. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. But this is for our baby, our family. We have to put her first. She had believed him. Why would she not believe him? He was the father of her child. He had cried when she showed him the positive test. He had bought a onesie that said Daddy's little girl before they even knew the gender. He had talked about names and nurseries and college funds. Now she understood. The tears were practice. The onesie was a prop. The conversations about the future were scripts he had rehearsed. Everything had been performance. From the very beginning. Margot shook off the memory. The past was a trap. She could not afford to live there. She was sitting in Emmy's car now. It was the day after the invitation arrived. Emmy had driven 4 hours through the night to be here. She had arrived at 6 in the morning with coffee and determination. We need to make a list, Emmy said. She had a legal pad on her lap, a pen in her hand, the same organizational skills that had gotten her through law school. Everyone who knows you, everyone who can confirm the pregnancy is real. What good will that do? He's already poisoned everyone against me. Everyone we knew together, our mutual friends, his family, probably my coworkers too. Not everyone. He couldn't have reached everyone. Emmy pulled out her phone. I'm going to make some calls. You're going to listen. Don't say anything yet. Just listen to what people say. The first call was to Dana, Margot's former coworker at the marketing firm. They had been close once, before everything changed, before Margot moved away, before Colton started rewriting history. Dana answered on the third ring. Emmy put the phone on speaker. Hey Dana, it's Emmy. Emmy Cross. We met at Margot's birthday party last year. You brought that amazing cheesecake. Oh, hi, I remember you. Dana's voice was cautious, wary, like she was talking to someone dangerous. How are you? I'm good. I was actually wondering if you'd heard from Margot lately. I've been trying to reach her. A long pause. The sound of Dana moving to a quieter room. A door closing. I didn't think she was talking to people, Dana finally said. After everything that happened, Colton said she needed space. He said contact from friends might trigger another episode. Another episode of what? You know, the breakdown, the pregnancy thing. He said she got really attached to the idea of having a baby, even after, well, you know. After what, Dana? After she lost it, the miscarriage. Colton said it happened at about 4 months. He said she couldn't accept it. She kept acting like she was still pregnant, buying baby clothes, decorating a nursery. He said it was heartbreaking to watch. Emmy looked at Margot. Her eyes were hard, her jaw was tight. Dana, I'm going to ask you something and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Did you ever see Margot pregnant? With your own eyes? In person? Well, sure, at the engagement party. She was showing a little, maybe 3 or 4 months along. I remember because she was glowing. I told her she looked beautiful. But Colton said she lost the baby after that. He said the stress was too much. He said her body just gave up. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? He seemed so heartbroken. He could barely talk about it without tearing up. And he was so worried about her. He asked all of us to keep our distance. He said she needed professional help. He said our support, however well-intentioned, might interfere with her treatment. Her treatment for what? He never said exactly. But he implied, he implied she was somewhere, a facility, getting help. He said that's why no one could reach Victor Octor. He said she had voluntarily given up her phone. Emmy ended the call. She stared at the phone in her hand like it had personally betrayed her. He told people you were in a psychiatric facility, she said. He told people you voluntarily admitted yourself. He created an entire story to explain your absence. And everyone believed it. They believed it because he cried, because he seemed devastated, because he played the part of a grieving, almost father perfectly. Emmy shook her head. I'm going to call more people. This is just the beginning. She made 3 more calls. The conversations followed the same pattern. Everyone had seen Margot pregnant. Everyone believed she had miscarried. Everyone thought she was far away, healing from a tragedy that never happened. Everyone had been told to keep their distance. Colton had not just lied about her. He had isolated her completely, cut off every avenue of support, made sure that when people thought of Margot Sinclair, they thought of a abandoned, broken woman who could not be reached. He's good, Emmy said grimly. I'll give he's that. He's very, very good. He's had practice. Margot's voice was flat, drained. This isn't his first time. What do you mean? I mean there was someone before me, a woman. He mentioned her once, early in our relationship. He said she was an ex who couldn't let go. He said she had made up stories about him after they broke up. He said she was unstable, obsessive, that she had tried to ruin his reputation. Emmy's expression shifted. The anger was still there, but now there was something else too. Recognition. Understanding. You think he did the same thing to her? I think I need to find out. Finding Genevieve took 3 days. She had changed her name, moved to a different state, done everything she could to disappear from Colton Ashford's orbit. She had buried her past so deep that most people would never have found her, but Emmy was resourceful. She had a cousin who worked in government records. She had a friend who specialized in digital investigations. She had contacts from her brief stint at a law firm before she decided courtrooms weren't for her. On the 4th day, Margot called the number Emmy had found. It rang 5 times. She was about to hang up when a woman answered. Her voice was tired, guarded, the voice of someone who had learned not to trust. Who is this? My name is Margot Sinclair. I'm calling about Colton Ashford. Silence. Absolute silence. Not even breathing. I don't know anyone by that name, Genevieve finally said. Please, I know what he did to you. At least, I think I know. Because I think he's doing the same thing to me. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you have the wrong number. I'm 7 months pregnant with his child. He told everyone I miscarried. He told everyone I had a mental breakdown. He told everyone I'm in a psychiatric facility. He's getting married in 2 weeks to someone else. I found out from a wedding invitation that was forwarded to me by accident. More silence. Then a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob, the kind of sound that contains years of pain compressed into a single breath. He always did like to control the narrative, Genevieve said. Her voice had changed, softer now, more human. He's a master at it. By the time you realize what's happening, he's already written you out of the story. Please help me. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. You're dealing with a sociopath, a charming, well-connected, extremely dangerous sociopath. He nearly destroyed my life. He would have succeeded if I hadn't run. What did he do to you? Genevieve's story took 2 hours to tell. Margot listened without interrupting. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she felt numb. Sometimes she felt a strange relief that she was not alone, that she was not crazy, that someone else had lived through this nightmare and survived. The pattern was identical. The love bombing at the start, the gradual isolation, the gaslighting that made her question her own sanity, the subtle manipulation that seemed like love until you looked at it from outside, the sudden discard when he found someone new, someone shinier, someone easier to control. I had evidence too, Genevieve said. Photos, emails, proof that he had been lying about everything, proof that he had stolen money from my accounts, proof that he had been seeing other women the entire time we were together. What happened when you tried to share it? No one believed me. He had already told everyone I was unstable, obsessive, dangerous. He had doctors lined up who would testify about my mental state. He had friends who would swear they had witnessed my episodes. By the time I tried to speak, my credibility was already destroyed. What did you do? I took his money and I ran. He offered me $200,000 to sign an NDA and disappear. I should have fought. I know that now. I should have stood my ground and forced the truth to come out. But I was broken. I was exhausted. I didn't have the strength to fight someone who had already beaten me so thoroughly. I have strength, Margot said. The words surprised her. They felt true in a way that nothing had felt true for months. I have a mother who kept records of everything. I have a best friend who won't let me quit. And I have a daughter who deserves to know the truth about who her father really is. Genevieve was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, hopeful, almost eager. There's something else you should know, she said. Something that might help you. His investment firm, Ashford Capital. The one that made the family rich, it's not legitimate. What do you mean? I mean he's been moving client money into personal accounts, skimming from investments, using new deposits to pay old withdrawals. It's a classic Ponzi scheme dressed up in expensive suits. I found out by accident. I saw documents I wasn't supposed to see. That's when everything changed. That's when he decided I had to go. Do you have proof of the financial fraud? I have enough to raise questions, not enough to prove anything in court. He made sure of that. He destroyed everything he could find. But the records exist somewhere. They have to. That kind of fraud leaves traces. What if I could find more proof? Genevieve hesitated. When she spoke again, her voice was almost a whisper. There's someone in who might be able to help. An attorney named Warren Blackwood. He's been trying to build a case against Colton for years. One of his clients lost everything to Ashford Capital. An elderly woman who trusted the family name. Warren never had enough evidence to move forward. But if you have what you say you have, if you can find more, maybe together it would be enough. Margot wrote down the name, underlined it twice. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with this, for believing me. I'm not doing it for you, Genevieve said. I'm doing it for whoever comes next. Because there's always someone next, unless someone stops him. After the call ended, Margot sat on her bed in the quiet Virginia apartment. The evening light slanted through the windows, golden, peaceful, completely at odds with the storm inside her. The baby was active, rolling and kicking and stretching, like she knew something important was happening, like she was preparing for battle too. Emmy knocked on the door. You okay? That was a long call. I found our next step, an attorney named Warren Blackwood. He's been investigating Colton for years. And Emmy, it's worse than we thought. The fraud is real. Colton has been stealing from his clients. That's why he needs to control the narrative so carefully. He's not just covering up affairs and manipulation. He's covering up crimes. Then let's call this Warren. Let's see what he knows. Not yet. First, I want to see something. Margot opened her laptop. The timeline still doesn't add up. Colton and Tessa. When did they actually get together? He told me he was focused on the merger, on the business. He said he was too busy for visits because of work. But if he was already seeing someone else, she started scrolling through social media. Tessa Monroe's accounts were public, full of photos, full of timestamps, full of evidence if you knew what to look for. It took an hour of searching, cross-referencing dates, checking locations, studying backgrounds and photos for clues. But eventually Margot found it. A photo from 9 months ago, Tessa at a charity gala, Colton beside her, his arm around her waist, his smile wide and genuine. The caption read, "Best night with my favorite person." 9 months ago. Margot had still been living with Colton 9 months ago. She had been sharing his bed, carrying his child, making plans for their future. He had been making different plans. She kept scrolling, more photos, more timestamps, restaurant check-ins, concert tickets, weekend getaways. The evidence was overwhelming. The affair had started long before Margot left for Virginia, maybe before she was even pregnant, maybe from the very beginning. Then she saw something that made her stop breathing. A photo of Tessa wearing a necklace, a sapphire pendant on a thin gold chain. The stone was oval, deep blue, set in antique gold with tiny diamonds around the edge. Margot knew that necklace. Colton had given it to her for their anniversary. He had said it was his grandmother's, a family heirloom, one of a kind. He had cried when he put it around her neck. He had said it was a promise, a symbol of their future together. She walked to her jewelry box, opened the velvet compartment, pulled out the necklace Colton had given her. The same pendant, the same chain, the same antique setting, identical in every way. He had given them the same necklace, told them the same story, made them both believe they were special, unique, loved. They were interchangeable, props in his performance, actresses in a play he had written and would rewrite whenever it suited him. "Emmy," Margot said. Her voice was strange, calm in a way that worried her. "Come look at this." Emmy looked. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. "That's your necklace." "That's both our necklaces. He gave us each one with the same story about his grandmother, about how it was one of a kind, about how he was giving us his heart." Son of a bitch. Margot closed the laptop. She placed her hands on her belly. The baby had gone still. Listening maybe, waiting for whatever came next. "I'm not crazy," Margot said. The words were not for Emmy. They were for herself, for the woman she had been, for the woman she was becoming. "I'm not obsessed. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm a woman who was lied to by a man who treats people like props in his own personal drama. And I'm done being a prop." "What are you going to do?" Margot looked at the folder her mother had given her. The evidence, the truth, the weapon she had not known she possessed. "I'm going to call Warren Blackwood," she said. "I'm going to combine everything we have with everything he has, and then I'm going to figure out how to make Colton Ashford face what he's done. Not for revenge, for justice, for my daughter, and for every woman he's ever erased." The bathroom tiles were cold against Margot's back. It was 3 in the morning. She had been sitting on the floor for over an hour. She was not crying. She was past crying. She had cried so much in the past week that her eyes felt raw, empty. There was nothing left to squeeze out. Just a hollow ache where the tears used to be. The baby kicked 7 times in 10 minutes. Restless, agitated, as if she could feel her mother's turmoil. As if she was trying to say something. "I'm here, we're real, don't give up." "I know," Margot whispered into the darkness. "I know, baby girl. I'm not giving up. I'm just tired. So tired." She pulled herself up. Her back ached. Her ankles were swollen. 7 months of pregnancy plus 5 months of stress had taken their toll. She shuffled to the bedroom. Could not sleep. The thoughts kept racing. The questions kept multiplying. The fear kept pressing down. She walked to the kitchen. Made tea she knew she would not drink. stared at the kettle as it boiled, watched the steam rise and disappear. Finally, she did what she always did when the world felt uncontrollable, when the thoughts would not stop, when the fear was too big to face directly. She baked her grandmother's biscuit recipe. The one he passed down through 3 generations of Sinclair women. The one that required exact measurements and careful timing and complete attention. The one that left no room for thinking about anything else. She measured flour. 1 cup, 2 cups, sifted it into the bowl, watched the white powder fall like snow. She cut in the butter, cold from the refrigerator, in small pieces so it would mix evenly. Her fingers worked the dough, pressing, folding, finding a rhythm that her body remembered even when her mind was elsewhere. She added buttermilk slowly, carefully, watching the dough come together, feeling it transform beneath her hands, from ingredients to something whole, something real. Her hands were shaking at first, the tremors she could not control during the day, the fear made physical. But as she worked, they steadied. The rhythm of the recipe was familiar, comforting. The same motions her grandmother had made, the same motions her mother still made. A chain of women stretching back through time, all of them facing their own impossible things, all of them finding comfort in flour and butter and simple actions. By the time the biscuits came out of the oven, the sun was coming up. Golden light spilled through the kitchen window. The biscuits were perfect, flaky, golden brown on top. The smell filled the apartment, warm, safe, like childhood, like home. Margot did not eat them. She just stared at them, proof that she could still create something good, even now, even in the middle of this. Proof that her hands still worked, that her mind still functioned, that she was still capable of completing something, even if it was just a recipe. Her mother arrived at 8. She let herself in with the key Margot had given her months ago. She took one look at the biscuits on the counter and understood immediately. "Bad night," Ruth said. "The worst." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really. I want to work. I want to do something useful. I want to stop thinking about him for 5 minutes." Ruth nodded. She set her bag on the table, pulled out another folder. This one was thicker than the first, stuffed with papers, bristling with sticky notes. "I did some digging last night," she said. "Called in a few favors. You're not going to believe what I found." She spread papers across the kitchen table. Bank statements, corporate filings, court records, stock certificates, the paper trail of Colton Ashford's empire. "Colton's investment firm is called Ashford Capital," Ruth began. "On paper, it manages about $300 million for wealthy clients. Very exclusive, very prestigious. Old money families, new money entrepreneurs, people who trust the Ashford name." I know, he talked about it constantly, how important the family legacy was, how he was building something for future generations. What he didn't talk about is that the firm is hemorrhaging money. They've had 6 major withdrawals in the past year. Each time it took them weeks to fulfill the request. That's a red flag, a big one. A legitimate investment firm should be able to process withdrawals quickly, within days, not weeks. Margot studied the papers, numbers and columns that meant little to her, but the pattern was there. Delays, excuses, accounts that should have been liquid suddenly requiring time to access. Where's the money going? That's the interesting part. Emmy's husband knows someone who works in financial investigations. Apparently, Colton has been moving client funds into a web of shell companies. The money goes in and it never comes out, at least not back to the clients. He's stealing from his own clients? He's been doing it for years, at least 3, probably longer, small amounts at first. Easy to hide, but it's escalating. The withdrawals last year were big, 7 figures, and each time he had to scramble to cover them. Ruth pointed to a specific document, a complaint filed with the State Securities Board 2 years ago. This was filed by a former client, an elderly widow who invested her late husband's pension. She tried to withdraw $50,000 for medical expenses. It took Colton 4 months to produce the funds. When she complained, he claimed it was a banking error. He offered her a settlement if she would drop the investigation. She took it? She didn't have a choice. She needed the money for her health care, And Colton's lawyers made it clear that fighting would be expensive, in public, and ugly. So she signed the NDA and walked away. How many others are there? At least 5 that I could find, probably more. The settlements were all sealed. The complaints were all withdrawn, but the pattern is there if you know what to look for. Margot thought about that. The pattern, the sealed settlements, the clients who were bought off or bullied into silence. It was the same thing he was doing to her. The same playbook. Control the narrative. Eliminate the witnesses. Make the truth disappear. There's more, Ruth said. She pulled out a photograph. This is Bradley Ashford, Colton's older brother. He's the best man at the wedding. Margot recognized him. She had met Bradley several times over the years. At family dinners, at company events, at the holiday party where she had first felt the baby kick. Bradley had always seemed uncomfortable around her, nervous, unable to meet her eyes. She had assumed it was shyness. Now she wondered. Bradley knows, Ruth continued. He's known about the fraud for years. He's the chief financial officer of Ashford Capital. He signs off on the quarterly reports. He has to know where the money is really going. So he's complicit. He's complicit and he's scared. There's a difference. Ruth set down the photo. Complicit people protect themselves. Scared people protect the ones they're afraid of. Bradley is afraid of his brother, afraid of his mother, afraid of losing everything if the truth comes out. Why doesn't he just leave? Because his trust fund is tied to the company. His house is mortgaged against company assets. His entire life is built on the foundation his family created. If Ashford Capital collapses, Bradley loses everything. So he stays silent. He goes along. He tells himself it's not that bad, that the problems will fix themselves, that the fraud will somehow stop mattering. Margot looked at the photograph. Bradley's nervous smile, his expensive suit, his eyes that could not quite focus on the camera. Scared people can be turned, she said slowly, if they get scared of something else more. Ruth smiled, that fierce smile again, the one that said she was ready to fight. Exactly. The doorbell rang. Emmy went to answer it. She came back with a man in a gray suit, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair cropped short, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The look of someone who had seen a lot and been surprised by very little. Margot Sinclair, he said. His voice was calm, measured. I'm Warren Blackwood. Genevieve told me to expect your call. She didn't mention you'd already have half my case files spread across your kitchen table. Warren sat down at the table. He moved some of the papers aside. Not dismissively, carefully, respectfully. These were weapons, and he knew how to handle weapons. I've been building a case against Colton Ashford for 6 years, he said. He defrauded a client of mine, Eleanor Chen, 83 years old. She invested her entire retirement savings with Ashford Capital because she trusted the family name. Her husband had done business with Colton's father decades ago. She thought she was continuing a relationship that had been good for her family. What happened? She needed money for a nursing home, quality care, the kind that costs thousands a month. She tried to withdraw from her investment account. Colton told her there was a problem, market volatility, timing issues. He asked her to wait. She waited. He asked her to wait more. She waited more. By the time she realized something was wrong, she had lost everything. How much? $400,000. Her life savings. Gone. Margot thought about Eleanor Chen. 83 years old. Trusting. Vulnerable. The perfect victim for someone like Colton. Did you try to prosecute? I tried. I gathered every document I could find. I interviewed former employees. I traced money through shell companies. But by the time I had enough to present to the authorities, Colton had already covered his tracks. He had explanations for everything. Market losses, bad investments, unfortunate timing. The trail was cold. The evidence was circumstantial. And Eleanor died before we could go to court. She died? Stress, heartbreak, the loss of everything she had worked for. Warren's voice tightened. She died believing she had made a terrible mistake, that she had been foolish to trust, that her own judgment had failed her. She never knew that she was the victim of a deliberate fraud. She never knew that Colton had stolen her money and destroyed her reputation to cover his tracks. The room was silent. The weight of Eleanor Chen's story hung in the air. One more woman erased, one more victim who never got justice. And now you've brought me something I never had before, Warren continued. He picked up one of Ruth's documents. Contemporary evidence. Time-stamped. Documented. Proof that he's still actively committing fraud. Proof that the pattern hasn't stopped. Is it enough? To prosecute on its own? Maybe not. The Ashford family has excellent lawyers. They would tie this up in court for years. But to create reasonable doubt in a civil case? Definitely. To ruin his reputation if it becomes public? Absolutely. To convince other victims to come forward? Almost certainly. Warren set down the folder. He looked at Margot directly. His eyes were steady, honest. This was a man who had been waiting a long time for this moment. But I need to be honest with you, he said. Going after Colton Ashford is dangerous. He has resources, he has connections. He has a family that has been covering up scandals for generations. He will fight back, and he will try to destroy you the way he tried to destroy Genevieve, the way he destroyed Eleanor, the way he's destroyed everyone who ever threatened his image. He already tried to destroy me, Margot said. He told everyone I lost my baby. He told everyone I went insane. He erased me from existence and then got engaged to someone else while I was still carrying his child. What more can he do? More than you think. He can have you declared an unfit mother. He can take custody of your daughter before she's even born. He can make sure that when people Google your name, they find a carefully constructed narrative of mental illness and instability. He can make your life very, very difficult. Then I need to make his life difficult first. Warren almost smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. He pulled out his own folder, thicker than Ruth's, years of work compressed into paper and ink. We have options, he said. We can go to the authorities, build a formal case, let the legal system handle it. That's the proper way. The slow way, the way that might not work because Ashford lawyers are very good at making problems disappear. Or there's the wedding, Emmy leaned forward. What about the wedding? 400 guests, the social elite of Virginia, old money, new money, politicians, business leaders, press coverage from multiple outlets. If evidence were to be presented at that venue, in front of those witnesses, it would be impossible to suppress, impossible to spin. Everyone would see it with their own eyes. Everyone would hear it with their own ears. And the story would spread before Colton could even begin to control it. Ruth shook her head. That sounds like a good way to get arrested for trespassing. Not if she's invited. Warren pulled out his phone, scrolled to a photo. This is Sloane Whitfield, Tessa Monroe's maid of honor, best friend since high school. She contacted me 3 days ago. The photo showed a young woman, blonde hair, worried eyes, the look of someone carrying a secret that was too heavy to bear alone. Why did she contact you? Because she's been having doubts about this wedding for months. Because Tessa cries every night. Because Colton has been controlling every aspect of the planning. Because Sloane found something in the prenuptial agreement that doesn't add up. And because she's finally ready to do something about it. Margot looked at the photo. This woman, this stranger. Who had seen through Colton when everyone else was fooled? What did she find in the prenup? A clause that gives Colton complete control of Tessa's inheritance if they divorce within 5 years for any reason he defines as unsuitable behavior. The language is deliberately vague. Infidelity could count. Mental illness could count. Even just disagreeing with him too often could count. It's not a marriage contract. It's a trap. He's not just marrying her. He's acquiring her assets. That's exactly what Sloane thinks. Tessa comes from old money. Her family trust is worth over $20 million. If the marriage lasts 5 years, Colton has access to all of it. If it ends before that, he gets control anyway as long as he can claim Tessa behaved unsuitably. He's done this before. Almost certainly. We're still looking into his financial history, but the pattern is there. Marry wealthy, control the narrative, extract the assets, discard and repeat. Warren placed a business card on the table. Think about it. Talk to your mother. Talk to your friend. Then call me. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. But I think we both know which option actually has a chance of working. He left. The room was quiet. Outside, birds were singing. The morning was advancing. The biscuits were still on the counter, cold now but still fragrant. Margot's phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "This is Sloan. Warren gave me your number. Tessa doesn't know what she's getting into. She thinks she's in love. She thinks this is her fairy tale. But I've seen the cracks. I've heard her crying at night. I've watched him control her. Please help me stop this. I can get you into the wedding. Nobody questions the maid of honor." Margot read the message twice, then 3 times. Then she looked at her mother, at Emmy, at the folders full of evidence spread across the table. "I have to choose," she said, "between my dignity and my security, between staying quiet and staying safe, between letting him win and risking everything." "You don't have to decide right now," Ruth said. "Take time, think it through." "Yes, I do. The wedding is in 12 days. If I'm going to do this, I need to prepare. If I'm not, I need to let Sloan know. I need to decide what kind of woman I want to be. What kind of mother." Emmy took her hand. "What does your gut say?" Margot thought about the biscuits, about the folder full of evidence, about Eleanor Chen, who died believing she was a fool, about Genevieve, who ran because she had no strength left to fight, about the baby growing inside her who would someday ask what happened to her father. "My gut says I've been silent long enough," she said slowly. "My gut says there are other women who've been silenced too. My gut says someone has to be the one who finally speaks. And my gut says that someone is me." She picked up her phone, typed a reply to Sloan. "I'm in. Tell me what you need me to do." Diana Ashford arrived 5 days later. She did not knock. She did not ring the doorbell. She simply walked in, as if she owned the building. As if she owned everything. As if ownership was simply a state of mind she projected onto the world. "Ms. Sinclair," she said, her voice was ice wrapped in silk, "we need to talk." Margot was alone. Emmy had gone to pick up groceries. Ruth was meeting with Warren to review legal strategies. The timing was not coincidental. Diana Ashford did not do anything by coincidence. "Mrs. Ashford, I'd offer you coffee, but I don't remember inviting you into my home. This is a rental, paid for by my son. Until recently, at least, I'd say that gives me certain privileges. Your son stopped paying rent 4 months ago. I've been covering it myself with the money he sent for baby expenses. The money you probably don't know about." Diana's expression flickered, just for a moment. Surprise quickly hidden behind years of practice. "I see. Well, in any case, I'm not here to discuss real estate or finances. I'm here to discuss something far more important." She sat down on the couch, crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap. Every movement was precise, controlled. The gestures of a woman who had spent decades presenting a carefully curated image to the world. "I'm here to discuss your future, and my grandchild's future." Margot remained standing. She was taller this way. It felt like an advantage. "You mean the grandchild you've been telling everyone doesn't exist?" "I've been telling people what needed to be told, for everyone's protection, including yours." "How exactly does erasing my pregnancy protect me? How does telling people I had a mental breakdown protect me? How does destroying my reputation among everyone I know protect me?" Diana's smile was thin, sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "You're young, naive. You don't understand how the world works. My son has a complicated history. He makes decisions that sometimes require management. When he told me about your situation, I advised a clean break, a fresh start for everyone. The story we constructed was designed to give you cover, to let you disappear without scandal, to protect you from the consequences of your own choices." "My choices? I chose to be pregnant? I chose to be abandoned? I chose to be erased?" "You chose to become involved with my son. You chose to continue the pregnancy despite knowing how complicated his life is. You chose to ignore the signs that perhaps this relationship was not meant to last." Margot stared at her. This woman, this mother who defended her son's lies, this architect of her erasure. What signs was I supposed to see? The love bombing, the promises, the tears when I told him I was pregnant, the baby clothes he bought, the nursery he helped me plan. He was playing a role. He plays many roles. It's how he was raised. It's how our family survives. You weren't supposed to take it so seriously. He asked me to marry him. Many people ask many things. That doesn't mean they mean them. The words hung in the air, cold, honest, terrifying in their casual cruelty. Diana reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope, set it on the coffee table between them. Inside that envelope is a cashier's check for $200,000. In exchange, you sign a non-disclosure agreement. You agree to have no further contact with my son. You agree that any public statements about your relationship Drew will result in immediate legal action. You agree to go away and stay away. Margot did not touch the envelope. And my daughter? She will be provided for. A trust fund will be established. Generous monthly payments until she reaches adulthood. You will have full custody. The Ashford name will never appear on any documents. No birth certificate, no legal acknowledgement. As far as the world is concerned, you became pregnant by someone else. Someone whose identity you prefer not to disclose. You want me to erase Colton as the father, just like he erased me as the mother. I want you to accept reality. My son is getting married in 9 days. He's building a life with someone appropriate, someone who fits the family image, someone who comes from the right background and understands how these things work, someone who doesn't come with complications. Margot felt the anger rising in her chest, hot, sharp, a flame that had been waiting for fuel. My daughter is not a complication. She's a human being. She deserves to know who her father is. She deserves to understand where she came from. What she deserves is irrelevant. What matters is what's possible. And what's possible is determined by people with resources, with connections, with the ability to shape reality. That's not you, Ms. Sinclair. That's us. And if I don't accept your offer, Diana's smile widened, but it did not warm. Nothing about Diana Ashford warmed. Then things become difficult. We have documentation of your mental instability, medical records that suggest a pattern of delusion, psychological evaluations from respected professionals, witness statements from concerned friends who noticed erratic behavior before you left the city. Those documents are fabricated. Can you prove that? In court? Against our attorneys? With your limited resources versus ours? With your word against the word of respected doctors and longtime family friends? I have evidence of my own. Text messages from Colton acknowledging the pregnancy. Bank transfers labeled baby expenses. Emails from his lawyer discussing how to manage me. Proof that everything he told people was a lie. For the first time, something real appeared in Diana's eyes. Uncertainty, fear. Where did you get those? From people who were paying attention when your son thought no one was watching. From people who kept records. From people who knew something was wrong and had the wisdom to document it. Diana stood up. She was taller than Margot had realized. Taller and harder. A woman who had spent decades protecting the Ashford name. Cleaning up messes, burying inconvenient truths, eliminating threats. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she said. Her voice was no longer wrapped in silk. It was pure ice now, pure threat. Our family has been powerful in this state for 5 generations. We have judges who owe us favors, politicians whose campaigns we've funded, media contacts who will print whatever we tell them. We can make your life very, very difficult. Then why are you here offering me money? If you're so powerful, why not just destroy me? Diana's jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in her cheek. Because I prefer elegant solutions. Because a check is cleaner than a war. Because despite what you think, I'm not a monster. I'm a mother protecting her son. The same thing you would do for your daughter. I would never protect my daughter by destroying innocent people. I would never teach her that truth is something to be bought and sold. I would never show her that power means you can erase anyone who inconveniences you. Then you're weak, and weakness gets crushed in this world. Diana picked up the envelope, put it back in her purse. I came here to offer you a way out, a generous way out. You've chosen to reject it. Remember this conversation. Now, Miss Sinclair, remember that I tried to be reasonable. Remember that I gave you a chance to walk away with money and dignity, because what comes next won't be nearly so pleasant. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. The wedding will happen. My son will marry Tessa Monroe. Your child will grow up knowing her father chose someone else. And you will spend the rest of your life wondering if you made the right choice. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. Margot stood in the middle of the room. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. But she did not cry mocking. She was done crying over the Ashford family. She picked up her phone, called Sloan. Diana Ashford just visited me. She offered me $200,000 to disappear. Oh my God. Sloan's voice was breathless, frightened. What did you say? I said no, and I told her we have evidence. Real evidence. Documented. Time-stamped. Proof of everything. How did she react? She threatened me, then she left. But Sloan, she was scared. Underneath all the confidence and all the threats, she was scared. For the first time, they're facing something they can't control. The fraud thing is real then. I knew something was off with the finances, but I didn't know it went that deep. It goes very deep. Deep enough that if it comes out, the Ashford family loses everything. Not just money, not just reputation, freedom. Colton could go to prison. Diana could be charged as an accessory. The whole empire they've built on lies and stolen money could collapse. Then we have leverage. We have more than leverage. We have the truth, and the truth is harder to destroy than they think. That night, Colton himself appeared. No warning, no call, just a knock on the door at 9:30 in the evening. Margot looked through the peephole. There he was, the man she had loved, the man who had held her when she was scared about becoming a mother, the man who had cried happy tears and bought baby clothes and promised forever, the man who had erased her without a second thought. He looked good, tanned, relaxed, wearing an expensive jacket and a smile that used to make her heart race, a smile she now recognized as a weapon. Margot, he said through the door, I know you're there. I can see the shadow. We need to talk. She considered not opening it, considered calling the police, considered pretending she wasn't home. But then she remembered her phone, the recording app Emmy had installed, the evidence she was still collecting. Every word he said could be used against him. She opened the door, but only a few inches. The chain was still on. What do you want? To talk, just to talk. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Your mother was here earlier. I think your family has done enough talking for one day. I know, she told me. He ran his hand through his hair, the gesture he used when he wanted to seem vulnerable, human, relatable. She shouldn't have come here. That wasn't what I wanted. I just want to understand what's happening. What's happening is that you lied about me, to everyone. You told them I lost the baby. You told them I had a breakdown. You erased me from your life and replaced me before I even knew I was gone. It's more complicated than that. If you just let me explain. Explain what? The engagement party photos with Tessa from 9 months ago? The matching necklaces? The prenup designed to steal her inheritance? Which part would you like to explain? His face went pale. For a moment, the mask slipped. Underneath was something she had never seen before. Not love, not charm, just calculation. Pure, cold calculation. Where did you get that information? Does it matter? The point is, I have it, and I have a lot more. My mother said you have documents, emails, bank records. She's right. Those are private. Taking them was illegal. Is it illegal if someone gives them to you? Is it illegal if they're forwarded in your own mail? Is it illegal if your own mother kept copies of everything for years? He stepped closer to the door. His voice dropped. The charm was gone now. What remained was pressure, threat. Margot, listen to me carefully. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop. You need to take my mother's offer. $200,000 is a lot of money. You could start over, raise the baby somewhere far from here, build a good life. And if I don't, then I'll have to protect myself. I have lawyers who specialize in discrediting witnesses. I have doctors who will testify to your psychological instability. I have friends who will swear under oath that they saw you having episodes, making threats, behaving dangerously. All lies. The truth is whatever I can make people believe, and I'm very good at making people believe things. Ask anyone. Ask Genevieve. Ask Eleanor Chen. The name hit her like a slap. He knew. He knew she had been investigating. He knew about the connection to the fraud case. You know about Eleanor Chen? I know everything. I make it my business to know everything. That old woman who tried to cause trouble for my family, she's dead now. Heart attack, stress. The investigation died with her. Her lawyer couldn't prove anything without her testimony. You're admitting to fraud right now, to my face. I'm not admitting anything. I'm explaining how the world works. The strong survive. The weak get crushed. You're weak, Margot. You've always been weak. That's why I chose you, because you were easy to control, easy to manipulate, easy to discard when I was done. The words cut deep, deeper than she expected, because part of her had always feared they were true, that she had been chosen not for who she was, but for how easily she could be used. But another part of her, a stronger part, rose to meet the pain, the part that had survived 5 months of isolation, the part that had protected her child when she had no one else, the part that refused to be erased. You're wrong about me, she said. Her voice was steady, calm. I'm not the scared woman you sent away 5 months ago. I'm not the naive girlfriend you manipulated for 3 years. I'm not weak anymore, and in 8 days, I'm going to walk into your wedding and show everyone exactly who you really are. His face contorted. Rage, pure rage, the mask completely gone. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. She closed the door, locked it, put on the deadbolt. Then she walked to the kitchen, opened her laptop, stopped the recording. 15 minutes of audio, every word, every threat, every admission. She emailed the file to Warren, Emmy, Ruth, and Sloan. Then she sat down at the table, put her hands on her belly, felt her daughter moving inside her. Strong, Olive, fighting even before she was born. I deserve better than this, she said to the empty room. And so do you. And I'm going to make sure you know that every day of your life. I'm going to show you what it means to stand up. Even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when they try to make you believe you're weak. The countdown had begun, 8 days until the wedding. 8 days until she took back her story. Warren Blackwood's office was on the 3rd floor of a renovated warehouse downtown. The building had been a textile factory 100 years ago. Now it housed lawyers and accountants and people who made their living untangling other people's messes. The office itself smelled like old books and coffee. Files covered every surface, legal volumes lined the walls from floor to ceiling. This was a man who had been building cases for a long time. A man who understood that justice was slow, that truth needed to be documented, that the powerful rarely fell without years of careful preparation. I listened to the recording, Warren said. 4 times. It's remarkable. Remarkable how? He admits to fabricating evidence of mental illness. He threatens to have doctors lie under oath. He references Eleanor Chen by name. He calls your daughter a convenient excuse. He says the strong survive and the weak get crushed. If this went to court, it would be devastating. Margot sat across from him in a leather chair that had seen better decades. Ruth was on her left, Emmy on her right. The team was assembled. The War Council was in session. So we have enough to go to the authorities? Warren hesitated. He picked up a pen, turned it between his fingers. A nervous habit or a thinking habit? Hard to tell. We have enough to start an investigation. That's different from having enough to convict. Investigations take time, months, sometimes years. The Ashford family lawyers will fight every motion, challenge every document, question every witness. By the time we get a hearing, Colton will have constructed a dozen alternative explanations. What about the wedding plan? Warren pulled out a folder. Inside were photographs, floor plans, guest lists, timelines. The architecture of Colton Ashford's perfect day. Sloan has been incredibly helpful. She's given us everything we need. The ceremony starts at 4 in the afternoon. Pastor Harold Jennings officiating, traditional vows. The processional takes about 10 minutes. Then there's a 15-minute window between the opening prayers and the vows. That's when the pastor asks if anyone objects. That's really a thing? I thought that was just in movies. It's real, dating back centuries. Originally designed to catch bigamy or consanguinity. Rarely used in modern times, but legally, anyone who knows of an impediment to the marriage has the right to speak. And reading documents aloud counts as speaking? It's unconventional, but there's no rule against it. You're not disrupting the ceremony. You're responding to a direct question asked by the officiant. You're exercising a right that's been part of wedding ceremonies for hundreds of years. Emmy leaned forward. What about security? The Ashfords are paranoid about their image. They'll have people watching for trouble. That's where Sloane comes in. She's arranged for Margot to be seated near the front. Third row, aisle side. Not in the family section, but close enough to reach the altar before anyone can intervene. And security is focused on external threats. Protesters, paparazzi, uninvited guests. They're not watching for trouble from inside the ceremony. Ruth shook her head. This is insane. My pregnant daughter walking into a lion's den. What if they hurt her? What if they physically remove her? What if Colton loses his temper? I've made arrangements. Warren pulled out another document. 2 private investigators will be in the crowd, posing as guests. They'll be recording everything from different angles. If anyone lays a hand on Margot, we'll have it documented. If Colton threatens her, we'll have it on video. If Diana tries to cover something up, we'll have witnesses. And legally, can they sue her for disrupting the wedding? They can try, but she's not trespassing. She was invited by the maid of honor. She's not slandering anyone. She's reading documents that are factually accurate. The worst they could claim is intentional infliction of emotional distress, but that requires proving the documents are false, which they're not. Margot looked at the floor plan, the altar, the aisle, the hundreds of seats that would be filled with people who had believed Colton's lies, who had swallowed his version of reality, who thought she was a sorry, broken woman who had imagined a pregnancy and lost her mind. What exactly should I read? She asked. We have so much evidence. How do I choose what matters most? Warren opened a second folder. This one was organized with colored tabs, green, yellow, red, a system of priorities. We've organized the evidence into maximum impact order. First, the text messages acknowledging the pregnancy. These established that he knew about the baby and was actively involved, that he wasn't deceived, that he was a willing participant in everything he later denied. He pulled out printed pages, screenshots with timestamps, conversations about baby names and nursery colors and dreams for the future. Second, the bank transfers, cold, hard financial proof that contradicts his story, 8 separate deposits labeled baby expenses, thousands of dollars sent to your account over 3 months. You can't explain that away as a misunderstanding. More pages, account numbers, memo lines, dollar amounts in black and white. Third, the emails with his attorney. These show premeditation. He didn't just lie about you after the relationship ended. He planned it before he even sent you away. He was constructing the narrative while you were still together, while you were still pregnant, while he was still pretending to love you. Legal documents, email headers, timestamps that prove the timeline of betrayal. Finally, and this is the piece that will have the biggest impact, Warren pulled out the last set of pages. Love letters, not to you, not to Tessa, to another woman entirely, a third woman none of us knew about until a week ago. Margot stared at the letters. The handwriting was definitely Colton's. She would recognize those slanted letters anywhere, the way he crossed his T's with a sharp slash, the way his loops connected. Who is she? We're still working on identification, but it doesn't matter who she is. What matters is that he was deceiving everyone simultaneously. Tessa thinks she's the love of his life. She needs to know she's just the latest in a long line of victims. She needs to know that even now, even as he's marrying her, he's writing love letters to someone else. Emmy picked up one of the letters. Read it silently. Her expression darkened with every line. This is sick. He's telling this woman the exact same things he told Margot. The exact same phrases, word for word. It's like he has a template, a script he copies and pastes from one victim to the next. He does have a script, Warren confirmed. Narcissists often do. They find what works and they repeat it. The words that won Margot's heart are the same words that won Tessa's, and this other woman's, and probably a dozen others we'll never know about. He's not falling in love. He's running a con, and every mark gets the same treatment. Margot thought about that, all those intimate moments, the whispered promises, the tears of joy, the plans for the future, all of it recycled, performed, meaningless. She had believed she was special, that their connection was unique, that no one had ever loved him the way she loved him. Now she understood. She was not special. She was a role that could be filled by anyone. And when she became inconvenient, she was simply recast. 7 days, she said. We have 7 days to prepare. Then we should start now. The preparation was exhausting. They rehearsed everything multiple times, where Margot would sit, when she would stand, how she would walk to the front, what she would say before she started reading, how she would handle interruptions, how she would respond to threats. Stay calm, Warren coached. No matter what happens, don't raise your voice. Don't show anger. Don't let them provoke you into looking unstable. That's what they want. They want you to seem crazy so they can dismiss everything you say. Don't give them that ammunition. What if Colton interrupts? What if he tries to grab the documents? Keep reading. Don't stop. Don't engage with him directly. Address the crowd. Make eye contact with the guests. Let them see that you're calm, rational, in control. Let them see that you're telling the truth while he's panicking. What if Diana calls security? They won't reach you in time. The aisle is narrow. There are hundreds of guests. By the time anyone can physically remove you, you'll have read enough to plant doubt in everyone's mind, and our investigators will have documented everything. Any use of force becomes a scandal of its own. They practiced for hours. Margot's voice grew hoarse. Her feet ached from standing. Her back protested from walking back and forth across Warren's office. But she did not stop. She could not afford to stop. The baby kicked constantly, rolling, stretching, fighting in her own way. Even unborn, she was part of this battle. Even before her first breath, she was refusing to be erased. Sloan called every night with updates. Tessa was growing more anxious as the wedding approached. She was having nightmares. She was losing weight. She was fighting with Colton over tiny details that seemed to matter too much. She knows something's wrong, Sloan reported. She can't articulate it. She tells herself it's just wedding stress, but her body knows. Her instincts know. She wakes up in the middle of the night crying and can't explain why. Does she love him? She thinks she does, but it's not the kind of love that makes you happy. It's the kind that makes you desperate. She's terrified of losing him, terrified of disappointing him, terrified of being alone. That's not love. That's fear wearing a mask. Margot understood. She had felt the same fear, the same desperation, the belief that her worth depended on his approval, that her happiness was his to give or withhold. It had taken 5 months of isolation to see how trapped she had been, how the cage had been built around her so slowly that she never noticed the bars. After I do this, she's going to hate me, at least at first. Maybe. Or maybe she's going to thank you. It depends on how ready she is to see the truth. Some people fight against it. Some people embrace it. I can't predict which way she'll go. What about you? Why are you helping me? You're her best friend. You're supposed to be on her side. Sloan was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I am on her side. That's exactly why I'm doing this. Because she's walking into a trap and she can't see it. Because he's going to destroy her the way he destroyed you. Because if I stand there and watch it happen without doing anything, I'm not her friend. I'm her enabler. That takes courage. It takes necessity. I couldn't live with myself if I let this happen. I couldn't face her in 10 years when it all falls apart and know that I could have stopped it. 3 days before the wedding, something unexpected happened. Bradley Ashford reached out. The message came through Emmy's phone. He did not have Margot's number. Probably did not want a direct connection. Probably was terrified that Colton would somehow find out. I know what's happening. I know about the evidence. I know about the plan. I want to help, but I can't be public. Not yet. Please understand. Emmy called him back, put him on speaker. Bradley's voice was nervous, halting, the voice of a man who had been holding secrets for too long. I've known about Colton for years, he said. The fraud, the lies, the way he treats women. I've watched it happen again and again and said nothing. Because I was scared. Because the family money controls my life. Because I didn't know how to stop it. Why reach out now? Because my mother is panicking. I've never seen her like this. She's usually so controlled, so confident. But when she came back from visiting Margot, she was shaking. She locked herself in her office and made calls for hours. She's trying to move money, protect assets. She's preparing for the possibility that everything collapses. Do you know who she called? Lawyers, accountants, offshore banking contacts. She's been moving funds out of Ashford Capital all week, personal accounts in the Caymans, shell companies in the Virgin Islands. She knows the fraud investigation could happen. She's positioning the family to survive it. Warren took the phone. His voice was sharp, professional. Bradley, this is Warren Blackwood. I've been building a case against your brother for 6 years. If you're willing to testify about what you know, it would be extremely valuable. We could offer you immunity, protection, a chance to get out from under your family's control. Silence. The sound of Bradley breathing. Considering. I can't go on record. Not yet. My trust fund is tied to the company. My house is mortgaged against family assets. If I betray them publicly, I lose everything before the investigation even begins. I need to see which way this goes first. What can you give us? Information, guidance. I can tell you where to look, where the real documents are hidden, which employees are most likely to talk. And on the day of the wedding, I won't stop anything. I won't help Colton. I'll stay out of the way and let whatever happens, happen. That's something. It's all I can offer right now. But afterward, when the dust settles, maybe I can do more. Maybe I can finally stop being a coward. After the call ended, Ruth looked skeptical. You trust him? Not entirely, Warren admitted, but his information has already proven accurate. He told us about a holding company we didn't know about. He confirmed details about the money movements. He's not lying, he's just scared. He's still a coward. Yes, but sometimes cowards find their courage when they see the tide turning. When they realize the thing they've been protecting was never worth protecting in the first place. 2 days before the wedding, Margot went shopping. Not for herself, for the battle to come. Emmy came with her. They walked through the department store together looking at dresses. Nothing too flashy, nothing that would draw attention before the moment was right. You want to blend in, Emmy advised. Look like just another guest until you stand up. Then everyone's attention will be on what you're saying, not what you're wearing. They found a simple dress. Navy blue, modest neckline, room for a 7-month belly. The kind of thing you might wear to a church service, or a business meeting, or the systematic destruction of a narcissist's carefully constructed empire. You look beautiful, Emmy said when Margot tried it on. I look enormous. You look powerful. There's a difference. That night, Margot laid out everything on her bed. The dress, the folder, the documents organized in the exact order Warren had specified, the backup copies Emmy would carry, the recording devices she would wear hidden beneath her clothes. She read through the evidence one more time, the text messages, the bank transfers, the emails, the love letters. Each page was a piece of her story, a piece of the truth that had been stolen from her firm. Tomorrow she would begin taking it back. The night before the wedding, the last night before everything changed. Ruth had gone to bed around 10. Emmy was asleep in the guest room, exhausted from days of preparation. The house was silent except for the clock in the hallway. Tick, 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 counting down the hours. Margot could not sleep. She walked through the room she had grown up in. Her fingers traced the walls. The paint was the same color it had been when she was a child. The carpet had the same worn patches near the doorways. The photographs on the mantel told the story of her life in frozen moments. There she was at 5, gap-toothed and grinning. There at 12, awkward and uncertain. There at 18, graduating high school, the whole world ahead of her. There at 25, her parents' anniversary party, before she ever met Colton, before any of this began. Who had she been before him? She could barely remember. The woman in those photographs felt like a stranger. Someone she used to know but had lost touch with. The kitchen was dark. Margot did not turn on the lights. She stood by the window, looking out at the moonlit yard. The oak tree she had climbed as a child was still there. The swing her father had hung was still swaying slightly in the wind. What if she was wrong? The doubt crept in like a thief, silent, insidious. What if the evidence wasn't enough? What if Colton's lawyers found a way to explain everything? What if she walked into that wedding and everyone laughed at her? What if she made a fool of herself in front of 400 people? What if her daughter grew up ashamed of what mommy did? What if she was just as crazy as Colton said she was? Margot sank into a kitchen chair, put her head in her hands, the weight of everything pressed down on her. The enormity of what she was about to do, the risk, the uncertainty, the possibility of total failure. She had never felt so alone. At 3 in the morning, she did what she always did. She baked her grandmother's biscuit recipe again. The same one she had made a week ago. The same one that had been passed down through generations of Sinclair women who had faced their own impossible things. The flour felt cool against her fingers. The butter was cold and firm. The buttermilk smelled faintly tangy. Simple ingredients, simple process, a chain of actions that required attention, that left no room for fear. Her hands were shaking at first, but as she worked, they steadied. The rhythm of the recipe took over. Measure, sift, cut, mix, roll, shape, bake, each step following the next, each step bringing her closer to something finished. She did not eat the biscuits. She never did. She just made them. Something to do with the trembling, something to occupy the hours when sleep would not come. By the time the sun began to rise, the kitchen smelled like warmth and home. The biscuits were golden and perfect, and Margot felt, if not confident, at least calmer. She walked to the bathroom, stood in front of the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes were shadowed. Her hair was tangled from the sleepless night. Her belly was enormous, taking up most of the mirror. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman at the edge of something vast, a woman about to step off a cliff and trust that she would find solid ground. She splashed water on her face, brushed her teeth, began the slow process of becoming presentable. Emmy appeared in the doorway at 7. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were puffy, but she was smiling. "I knew you'd be awake. I smelled the biscuits. I couldn't sleep." "I know, neither could I." Emmy walked over, put her hand on Margot's shoulder. "You okay? You ready for today?" "I don't know if I'm okay, but I'm ready, or at least as ready as I'm going to be." That's all anyone can ask. Ruth appeared an hour later, already dressed, already caffeinated, already in battle mode. "I called Warren. Everything is in place. The investigators are already at the venue. Sloan has confirmed your seat assignment. The documents are organized, the backup copies are distributed." "What about Tessa? Any word from her?" "Sloan says she's a wreck, barely slept, keeps crying and saying she doesn't know why. Her mother thinks it's wedding jitters. Her father thinks she's just being emotional. But Sloan says she's never seen Tessa this scared." "Scared of what?" "That's the thing. She doesn't know, she can't name it. But some part of her knows something is wrong. Some part of her is trying to warn her. She's just not listening." Margot thought about that, about the instincts we ignore, the warning signs we explain away, the doubts we bury because facing them is too frightening. She had done the same thing for years, ignored the red flags, made excuses for Colton's behavior, told herself that love was enough, that she was overreacting, that everything would work out. It had taken losing everything to finally see the truth. Maybe Tessa would see it too. Maybe today would be the moment her eyes opened. Maybe today would be her liberation, even if it felt like destruction. Or maybe she would hate Margot forever. Maybe she would cling to her illusions. Maybe she would choose to believe Colton's lies because the alternative was too painful. There was no way to know. There was only the doing, the stepping forward into uncertainty, the trusting that truth was worth telling, whatever the consequences. "Let's go over the plan one more time," Ruth said, from the beginning. They rehearsed for 2 hours, every step, every contingency, every possible response. By noon, Margot was exhausted, but beneath the exhaustion was something else, something that felt like readiness, like resolve. "I need to be alone for a while," she said. "Before we go, I need to think." Emmy and Ruth understood. They gave her space, left her in the bedroom with her thoughts and her fears and her folder full of truth. Margot sat on the edge of her childhood bed. The same bed she had slept in as a girl. The same bed where she had dreamed of the future before she knew how complicated futures could be. She put her hands on her belly, felt her daughter moving, strong kicks, active rolling, a fighter even before birth. "I want you to know something," she said to the baby she could not yet see. "Someday you're going to face something that feels impossible, something that makes you want to give up. When that day comes, remember this. Your mother faced her impossible thing too, and she didn't back down. She walked into a room full of people who had been told to hate her. She spoke the truth when lying would have been easier. She chose dignity over safety." The baby kicked hard, as if agreeing, as if saying, "I understand. I'll remember." "You come from that," Margot continued. "You come from a long line of women who refused to be silenced. Your great-grandmother, your grandmother, your mother. We're stubborn. We're scared sometimes. But we don't give up, and neither will you." She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, stood up. It was time. The Ashford estate spread across 200 acres of Virginia countryside. The main house was a Greek revival mansion with white columns and sweeping porches. The gardens were immaculate. The lawns were emerald green. Everything was designed to project wealth, power, permanence. 400 guests were already arriving. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Valets in white jackets guided Mercedes and BMWs and the occasional Rolls-Royce to designated parking areas. Margot watched from a distance. She had parked her modest Honda a quarter-mile down the road. Walking would take longer, but it gave her time to prepare. Time to breathe. Time to remind herself why she was doing this. The folder was heavy in her hands. Heavy with evidence. Heavy with truth. Heavy with the weight of everything that had been stolen from her. She wore the navy blue dress. Simple. Modest. Nothing that would draw attention until the moment was right. Emmy walked beside her, dressed as a guest, carrying a purse that contained backup copies of everything. "You don't have to do this," Emmy said quietly. "We can turn around right now, get back in the car, drive away. No one would blame you." "I would blame me." "Margot, I've come too far to stop now, and there are too many people counting on me. Genevieve, Eleanor Chen, every woman he's ever hurt, and my daughter, especially my daughter." "Then let's do this." They reached the gate. A security guard in a dark suit checked their names against a list. Emmy was listed as a guest of Sloan Whitfield. Margot was listed as Emily Porter, a college friend of the bride. Fake name. Real invitation. No one questioned the message. The venue was spectacular. A garden terrace overlooking a private lake. White chairs arranged in perfect rows. An arch covered in white roses and cascading greenery. String quartet playing Pachelbel's canon. Margot found her seat, third row from the front, aisle side, close enough to reach the altar before anyone could stop her. She sat down, placed the folder on her lap, looked around at the other guests. She recognized some faces, people she had met when she was still Colton's girlfriend, people who had congratulated her on the pregnancy, people who had gushed about what a wonderful couple they made. None of them recognized her. They all thought she was gone, erased, a sad story of mental illness and loss. They were not looking for her. They would never expect her to appear. That was her advantage. The ceremony began precisely at 4. The guests fell silent. The quartet shifted to the processional music. Bridesmaids came first. 4 young women in lavender dresses, carrying bouquets of white roses. They walked slowly down the aisle, faces carefully composed. Then the groomsmen, 4 men in dark suits, walking with practiced precision. Bradley Ashford was among them. He kept his eyes fixed forward, did not look at the crowd. Then Sloan, the maid of honor. Her face was pale beneath her makeup. She glanced at Margot as she passed, just for a second, just long enough to acknowledge that everything was in place. Then Tessa. She was beautiful. There was no denying that. The dress was exquisite. Lace and silk and thousands of tiny crystals that caught the afternoon sun. Her veil was delicate as spider silk. Her bouquet was white roses and baby's breath. But Margot saw something else beneath the beauty. The tension in Tessa's shoulders, the stiffness in her smile, the way her hands trembled around the bouquet, the way her eyes darted nervously across the crowd, looking for something. Or maybe hoping to not find something. She looked like a woman walking to her doom. She just didn't know it yet. At the altar, Colton waited, handsome in his tuxedo, black jacket, white shirt, perfect posture. The smile of a man who had everything exactly as he wanted it. He looked at Tessa the same way he had once looked at Margot, like she was the center of his universe, like nothing else mattered, like he would love her forever. Margot knew now what that look really meant. It meant, you are mine, you belong to me, and I will use you until I'm done. The pastor began speaking, an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the sight of God and these witnesses to celebrate the union of Colton James Ashford and Tessa Marie Monroe in holy matrimony. Margot's heart was pounding. Her palms were sweating. The folder felt slippery in her hands. Not yet. Not yet. Wait for the question. The pastor continued. Readings from Scripture. Words about love and commitment in the sacred bond of marriage. Beautiful words. Hollow words when spoken over a relationship built on lies. Finally, the moment came. If anyone knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The pastor paused, a ceremonial pause. A moment of silence that was meant to pass unremarked. Margot stood up. I do. The words echoed across the garden. 400 heads turned toward her. 400 gasps filled the summer air. Colton's face went white. Diana Ashford rose from her seat in the front row. Her face was twisted with fury. Security! Someone remove this woman immediately. But Margot was already moving, walking down the aisle, step by step, toward the altar, toward Colton, toward the truth she had carried for months. The security guards were at the perimeter, too far away, too slow to react. By the time they understood what was happening, she was already at the front. My name is Margot Sinclair, she said. Her voice was steady, clear. The rehearsals had paid off. The fear was there, but she was in control of it. I was in a relationship with Colton Ashford for 3 years. During that time, I became pregnant with his child. I am currently 7 months along. Murmurs swept through the crowd, confused, shocked, disbelieving. That's impossible, someone called out. She lost the baby. She had a breakdown. No, Margot said, I didn't. He lied to you. He lied to all of you. And I have proof. She opened the folder. The first document was a screenshot of a text message, printed on crisp white paper, clear and readable even from a distance. This is a text message from Colton Ashford's personal phone, Margot announced. Her voice carried across the silent garden. Every word distinct, every syllable deliberate. It was sent to me 5 months ago, the day before he convinced me to leave for Virginia. She read aloud. Our baby is going to be perfect. I can't wait to meet her. I've been thinking about names, maybe Margaret, after your grandmother, or something more modern. I want her to have the best of everything. She's going to be so loved. She held up the document so everyone could see it. The phone number, the timestamp, the words in black and white, undeniable. He knew about the pregnancy, Margot continued. He was excited about it. He planned for it. He was an active, willing participant in everything that he later claimed never happened. The crowd was stirring now. Whispers moving through the rows like wind through grass. Phones were appearing in hands. Recording, documenting. The story was already spreading beyond this garden. Colton stepped forward. His charm was still in place, but Margot could see cracks forming beneath it. This is ridiculous, he said loudly. This woman is clearly disturbed. These documents are fabricated. She's been stalking me for months. Then explain this, Margot replied. She pulled out the second set of documents. Bank statements, transaction records, account numbers. These are bank transfers from our joint account to my personal savings. 8 separate deposits over 3 months, each one clearly labeled. She pointed to the memo lines, read them aloud. Baby expenses, month 1. Baby expenses, month 2. Baby expenses, month 3. Prenatal vitamins, maternity clothes, nursery furniture deposit. She looked at the crowd, made eye contact with as many people as she could. He sent me thousands of dollars specifically for pregnancy-related costs. He acknowledged the baby in writing. He contributed financially to the pregnancy he now claims was a delusion. Colton's face was red now, the charm completely gone. What remained was desperation. She forged those documents. She's a fraud, a con artist. I've been the victim here, not her. Have you? Margot kept her voice calm, in control. Then explain these. She moved to the third set of documents, the emails, the communications with his attorney. These are emails between Colton Ashford and his attorney, Richard Vance. They discuss how to handle my quote situation, unquote, after Colton decided he no longer wanted to be a father. She read aloud, if she doesn't cooperate, we can proceed with the incompetency angle. A few well-placed conversations should establish the groundwork. By the time she realizes what's happening, the narrative will be set. Her own confusion will work in our favor. The garden was absolutely silent now. Even the birds had stopped singing. 400 people were frozen in their seats, watching a narrative collapse before their eyes. He didn't just end our relationship, Margot said. He didn't just walk away from his child. He systematically destroyed my reputation. He told everyone I lost the baby. He told everyone I had a mental breakdown. He had doctors lined up to testify about conditions I never had. He was prepared to have me institutionalized to protect his lies. Tessa had not moved. She stood at the altar like a statue, her bouquet hanging forgotten at her side, her face completely blank. But that's not the worst of it, Margot continued. She pulled out the final set of documents. The love letters, handwritten on expensive paper, Colton's distinctive script. These are love letters Colton has been writing over the past 9 months. Not to me, I was already gone, and not to Tessa either. The crowd stirred, new whispers, new shock. He's been writing to another woman, someone none of us knew about. And the words he wrote to her are exactly the same words he used on me, exactly the same words he used on Tessa. She read from the first letter. You are the only woman I have ever truly loved. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were different. You understand me in ways no one else ever has. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you. She picked up another letter. Read again. I dream about our future together. A house overlooking the water. Children with your beautiful eyes. Growing old together, still holding hands. You are my soulmate, my one true love. The answer to every prayer I never knew I was praying. She held up the letters so everyone could see the dates. These were written last month, 3 weeks ago, while he was planning this wedding, while he was promising Tessa forever, while he was telling everyone he had finally found the love of his life. Finally, Tessa moved. She turned to Colton. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the silence everyone heard. Is this true? Of course not. Colton's voice was strained, breaking. She's making it up. She's been obsessed with me ever since I ended things. She can't accept that I moved on. Then whose handwriting is this? Tessa reached out, took one of the letters from Margot's hand, stared at it. She knew that handwriting. She had received love letters in that same script. She had saved them in a box in her closet. She had read them when she felt insecure and needed reassurance. It's yours, she said, her voice cracking. This is your handwriting. I would know it anywhere. Tessa, please, let me explain. Who is she? Who were you writing to? It doesn't matter. It wasn't real. It was just, I was confused. You have to understand. You swore to me. Tessa's voice was rising. The trembling was gone. Something harder was replacing it. I asked you if there was anyone else. On our 3rd date, on our 6-month anniversary, when you proposed. Every time I got scared, I asked you. And every time you swore there was only me. There is only you. These letters, they don't mean anything. They're dated from last month, Colton. 3 weeks ago. We had already sent the invitations. We had already ordered the cake. You were writing love letters to another woman while I was choosing flowers for our wedding. It's complicated. If you would just let me explain. But Tessa was done explaining, done understanding, done making excuses for the man she thought she loved. Something broke in her, the weight of all the doubt she had suppressed, All the warning signs she had explained away. All the tears she had cried while telling herself everything was fine. She screamed, not words, just sound. Pure anguish erupting from somewhere deep inside. The sound of a woman finally seeing what had been in front of her all along. And then she ran, down the aisle, past the shocked guests, past the string quartet that had long since stopped playing, past the security guards who did not know whether to stop her or help her. Her wedding dress streamed behind her like a white flag of surrender. She was gone. Diana Ashford was shouting. Bradley was frozen in place. The pastor was clutching his Bible like a shield. And Colton stood alone at the altar, his perfect day in ruins, his mask finally completely shattered. Margot lowered the folder. Her part was done. The truth had been told. Now the world could decide what to do with it. What followed was chaos. Guests were on their feet, some rushing after Tessa, some confronting Colton, some simply standing in shock, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Diana Ashford pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with fury. "You," she hissed at Margot, "you've destroyed everything. I've told the truth. What happens next is on you." "Truth? You call this truth? This is sabotage. This is a slander. It's documentation." Warren Blackwood appeared beside Margot, calm, controlled, professional. "Every document Ms. Sinclair read is authentic, time-stamped, verified. Any attempt to claim otherwise will be met with additional evidence, including recordings of both you and your son making threats." Diana's face went gray. "Recordings? Of Colton threatening Ms. Sinclair at her apartment, of you offering her $200,000 to sign an NDA, of multiple conversations that suggest consciousness of guilt and intent to obstruct justice. That's illegal. You can't record people without their consent. Virginia is a one-party consent state, Mrs. Ashford. Only one party to a conversation needs to know it's being recorded. That party was Margot. Every recording is perfectly legal." Diana took a step back. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. Not just angry, not just threatened, afraid. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice had lost its edge. "You're right," Warren replied. "This is just the beginning. The Securities and Exchange Commission will be very interested in what we've documented about Ashford Capital. The FBI has been notified about potential wire fraud, and the Attorney General's office is reviewing evidence of witness tampering and obstruction of justice." Diana turned and walked away, fast, not quite running, but close. Bradley approached them. His face was pale but determined. "I've already given my statement to the investigators," he said quietly. "Everything I know about the company finances, the shell accounts, the missing money, I'm done protecting him." "What about your trust fund?" Margot asked. "There won't be a trust fund if Ashford Capital goes down. At least this way I might not go to prison. And maybe I can finally sleep at night." He walked away too, disappearing into the crowd. Emmy found Margot near the abandoned altar. The rose arch was still beautiful. The chairs were still perfectly arranged, but the guests had scattered. The caterers were standing idle. The wedding that never was had left only confusion in its wake. "How do you feel?" Emmy asked. Margot considered the question. Really thought about it. "Empty," she said. "Not triumphant, not satisfied, just empty, like I've been holding my breath for months and I finally let it out." "That makes sense. I thought I would feel something more. Vindication, justice, something. Maybe that comes later. Right now you're probably in shock." "Maybe." They walked to the edge of the garden, overlooking the private lake. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of gold and pink. Beautiful, serene, completely indifferent to human drama. "Sloane called," Emmy said. "Tessa is with her parents. She's a wreck, but she's safe. And apparently she wants to talk to you. Not today, but soon." "She wants to talk to me?" "She wants to understand. She wants to hear the whole story. She's angry, but not at you, at him, at herself, at everyone who let this happen. I hope she can find peace. She will, eventually. She's stronger than she knows." Margot checked her phone, 17 messages, all from numbers she didn't recognize. She opened the first one. Thank you. He did the same thing to me 5 years ago. I never told anyone because I was ashamed. Your courage today gave me permission to finally talk about what happened. The second one, I'm sorry for believing his lies about you. If I had known the truth, I would have stood by you. I hope you can forgive me. The third one, you are the bravest woman I've ever seen. You just showed a lot of people that speaking up is possible, that truth matters, that victims don't have to stay silent. She read through all 17 messages. Different women, different stories, different years, but the same pattern. Colton had left a trail of destruction far longer than anyone had realized, and she had just turned on a light that would illuminate all of it. Come on, Emmy said. Let's get you home. Your mom is probably wearing a hole in the carpet. They walked back to the car. The Ashford estate was behind them now. The white columns, the perfect gardens, the facade of respectability that had hidden so much ugliness. At a stoplight halfway home, Margot started laughing, then crying, then both at the same time. Emmy didn't ask why. She just handed over a tissue and kept driving. When they reached Ruth's house, Ruth was waiting on the porch. She had been watching the videos. Someone had live streamed everything. It was already on social media, already spreading. She pulled Margot into a hug that lasted a full minute. I'm so proud of you, she said. So proud. I was terrified the whole time. I know, that's what makes it courage. Being terrified and doing it anyway. They went inside. Emmy ordered food. Ruth made tea. Nobody felt like cooking. The day had been too long, too much, too everything. Around 9, Warren called with the updates. Colton is lawyering up. Big firm out of D. They're going to fight everything. But we have momentum now. The story is everywhere. Other victims are coming forward. The SEC has already opened an investigation. What happens next? Depositions, document discovery, a long legal process. But the wedding video changes everything. Everyone saw it. Everyone heard the evidence. He can't spin this. He can't make it disappear. For once in his life, Colton Ashford has to face consequences. And Tessa? Her father has already hired a forensic accountant to review the prenup. They're finding irregularities. The marriage was never legally completed anyway, since she left before the vows, but they want to make sure he can't claim any rights to her assets. Good. She deserves protection. She does, and she's getting it because of you. After the call ended, Margot sat in her childhood bedroom. The letter she had written the night before was still on the dresser, the envelope with her daughter's name. She wouldn't need to give it to her daughter for many years. But someday when the time was right, her daughter would read about this day, and she would know that her mother never backed down. 3 months later, the hospital room was quiet, peaceful, late afternoon sun streaming through the windows. The scent of flowers, Ruth had brought daisies, Margot's favorite, mixing with the antiseptic hospital smell. Margot was exhausted. 23 hours of labor had tested every limit she had, but she was smiling, a smile that came from somewhere deeper than happiness, from somewhere that felt like purpose. In her arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Ruth Eleanor Sinclair, she said softly, named for the women who fought, named for your grandmother who kept records when everyone else forgot, named for your great-grandmother who never gave up even when the world told her she should. Ruth Sr. wiped her eyes. Emmy was pretending she wasn't crying. Neither of them was very convincing. She's perfect, Ruth said. Absolutely perfect. She's got your stubbornness, Emmy added. I can already tell. Good, she's going to need it. The baby opened her eyes, dark blue like all newborns. But Margot imagined she could see something in them already. Curiosity, determination, the spark of someone who would grow up knowing exactly who she was. Hi, baby girl, Margot whispered. I'm your mom. I have so much to tell you. But we have time. We have all the time in the world. The door opened. Warren Blackwood poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to offer congratulations and to share some news. News. Colton was formally charged this morning, securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, 12 counts in total. The FBI found evidence of offshore accounts we didn't even know about. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. Margot nodded slowly. It was not satisfaction she felt. Not exactly, more like completion. A chapter ending, a story reaching its natural conclusion. What about Diana? She fled the country, somewhere without an extradition treaty. We're still tracking her assets, but the estate has been seized. The company is being dissolved. Everything the Ashfords built on lies is coming down. And Bradley? Cooperating fully with prosecutors. In exchange for immunity, he's actually been helpful, providing documents, explaining the financial structures. He seemed, relieved, like he's been wanting to confess for years. Maybe he has been, Warren smiled. Maybe. In any case, the case is solid. Multiple victims have come forward. The wedding video has been viewed millions of times. Whatever happens in court, his reputation is destroyed. He'll never be able to hurt anyone else. Thank you, Warren, for everything. Thank you. Eleanor Chen would have wanted to see this day. She would have wanted to know that someone finally held him accountable. He left. The room was quiet again. Just 3 generations of Sinclair women and a brand new life. There's more news, Emmy said. Tessa reached out. She wants to come visit. Next week, if you're up for it. She wants to see me? After everything? She wants to thank you, and she wants to apologize for not seeing the truth sooner. She's been in therapy, working through a lot. She said she realized that you weren't destroying her wedding. You were saving her life. Margot thought about that. Saving her life, not the word she would have chosen. But maybe Tessa was right. Maybe some destructions are really rescues in disguise. Tell her she can come. I'd like to meet her properly, without the chaos. I will. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like an announcement, a declaration of presence. Margot looked down at her daughter, at this tiny, perfect person who had been with her through everything. Through the lies and the betrayal. Through the darkest nights. Through the moment of truth at the altar. Through the long months of waiting and preparation, and finally arrival. I want to tell you something, she said to the baby. Something important. Something I want you to remember, even before you can understand the words. Ruth and Emmy leaned in, listening. I used to think that strength meant never falling apart, that strong people didn't break, that courage meant never being afraid. But I was wrong. Strength is falling apart completely, on a bathroom floor, in your mother's arms, in front of 400 strangers, and choosing to rebuild anyway. Courage is being terrified and doing the thing regardless. The baby blinked. Listening maybe. Or just existing. Perfectly content in her mother's arms. You're going to face hard things. Everyone does. Life is going to knock you down. People are going to hurt you. There will be times when you want to give up, when the world feels too heavy, when you can't imagine how you'll get through. Margot's voice was steady, strong, the voice of a woman who had been through fire and emerged transformed. When those days come, remember this. You come from a long line of fighters. Your great-grandmother kept records when everyone else forgot. Your grandmother spent 2 years preparing for a battle that might never come. And your mother walked into a 400-person wedding and told the truth when lying would have been so much easier. She kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathed in the new baby smell, felt the weight of this tiny person who was already so loved. You carry all of that in you, the stubbornness, the courage, the refusal to be silenced. Whatever happens in your life, wherever you go, whoever you become, you will always be a Sinclair. And Sinclair women don't back down. Ruth was crying openly now. Emmy had given up pretending she wasn't. I love you, Margot whispered. More than I knew it was possible to love anyone, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing you what that means. The sun was setting outside the hospital window, another day ending, another chapter closing. But for Margot and her daughter, this was not an ending, it was a beginning. The folder that had changed everything sat in a safe deposit box now. Evidence, history, proof that truth was worth telling, no matter the cost. Someday, when Ruth Eleanor was older, Margot would show her that folder. She would tell her the whole story, every detail, every moment. And Ruth Eleanor would know that her mother had faced an impossible thing, that her mother had been scared and done it anyway, that her mother had refused to be erased, refused to be silenced, refused to disappear. The baby yawned, a big, wide-mouthed yawn that somehow conveyed perfect contentment. Margot smiled, the deepest smile she had ever smiled, the smile of a woman who had found something worth fighting for, worth suffering for, worth everything. The future stretched ahead of them, unknown, uncertain, full of possibilities. And for the first time in a very long time, Margot was not afraid of it. She was ready. And that is how Margot Sinclair walked into a wedding with nothing but the truth and walked out with her freedom. If this story moved you, if you felt her fear and her courage, if you found yourself holding your breath, waiting to see what happened next, then you are exactly the kind of person who belongs in this community. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in Margot's shoes. Would you have walked into that wedding? Would you have stayed silent? And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who has ever been made to feel invisible, someone who has ever been told their truth does not matter, share this with them, because sometimes one story can change everything. I will see you in the next one.